Today I'll be talking about the month of August. I made $134,000 in August. Um, it was a tough month, very tough. And the first week I was able to do quite well. Made about 110,000 in that first week of August. And I was feeling good. I was like, okay, this month is starting out really good. Let's just keep it going. And then things shifted. And, the environment got very slow and very choppy. But the ranges were nice. It was kind of weird. Like, I would consider it to be very hot. Just a very, very hot month as far as ranges and opportunities go. But the way that they kind of developed and set up changed quite drastically. And you're used to taking a shot a certain way. This is kind of like somebody saying, okay, you have to change the way you shoot the ball. Like, you just have to hold the ball a different way. You got to learn a new way. And so my brain was trying to learn the new way to take the shot, or learn kind of the new developments of these structures and the slower formations, kind of. And it's tough. It's tough to learn, and it's tough to adjust, and it's tough to apply these new concepts. Especially when in the past it seemed like maybe for a week or two, these slower kind of developments would be a thing, but then it would shift and it would get quite hot again and things would pick up. And yeah, but this time around it just seems like it's been the longest period, I would say, of kind of these slow developments. It's been for at least 3 weeks. It's coming up on a full month of it, where these things are just, they're very slow, they're very choppy. I noticed that a lot of the moves that I would normally capitalize on, they're not really occurring in those time frames that I prefer, and they're actually turning into swings. They're turning into after-hour pops. They're turning into kind of little gap ups, and then the first minute they'll just explode up and the opportunity is just gone. And it's been, it's just been a lot to kind of deal with. Yeah, I mean, it's been challenging. You got to be pretty great at trading to handle this environment. I mean, it's I haven't felt an environment this challenging in probably 2.5 years. I mean, it really is that hard. Now, of course, they're very, very good traders. They probably don't even notice a thing. They probably still consider this perfect market, and I mean, I can see why. The ranges are great. The opportunities are great. You just got to kind of have that additional experience to be able to execute these things very precisely, stay logical, and really execute them. It's so difficult. So yeah, you can see after the first week, it was just chop. I mean, basically chop the whole month. I mean, it was pretty miserable. I mean, this felt just as bad as when I had that hard time in May. I made 20,000 in May. And I mean, this month could have actually been worse. It's just I kind of hit that really nice first week where the plays were still kind of flowing the way I prefer. And it was close, I was close to, I would even say close to a red month, really, if I didn't have that first week. So, 134,000 is great, but obviously when you look at the performance, how I didn't adjust very well, the chop, I don't really think about if a month was good or not, I don't really think of it in terms of money anyways. I've never really thought of it like that. It's always just about how much did you struggle, how much opportunities did you kind of just let pass you by, and you know, just too many to count, too many mistakes to count, too many flaws, mental flaws, overtrading, mental breakdowns, too many, just way too many. The performance was lacking, and it shows in the overall results. Now this is August, ended here. I had just kind of started to break out and start to uptrend. I was testing 1.8 mil, and then I had a 30K red week. The week that we just had, 30K red week, so worst week I've ever had. And at least on Friday, I was able to make like a $16.6 thousand day. So at least I had a green day on Friday. Hopefully next week I can come back and trade a little differently, But yeah, it's just chop. Break even for such a long period of time. It happens. It happens. I haven't been doing a great job of adjusting, like I said, and I've still been pushing really heavy size and pushing my limits, which I don't mind. I think it's easy to look at short-term results and be really overly critical. And for this month, I definitely do deserve to be overly critical of myself, but at the same time, it's very, very good experience, and I do feel like once the market shifts and goes back to the kind of the way that I prefer, which it's only a matter of time, because that's just how the market works. The market always kind of shifts and flows in different ways. It's not going to stay this way forever, but going forward, I will certainly adjust to the new flow, as long as that new flow remains. Like I said, usually that slower flow would change quite fast, and we'd go back to those fast flows, but the slow flow is just not changing. So it might be here to stay for a while. And so obviously I can't just ignore it. I'm going to have to adjust, and that's kind of what this month has told me. So we'll see going forward if I can turn things around and start an uptrend. At least I'm sustaining myself. That's probably the best part of this month, is even though I had so much trouble, I still broke even for 3 weeks. It's not like I'm downtrending into a spiral or anything. It's just a little frustrating to put in a lot of work and not really have anything to show for it, but that is what trading is. You get paid based on your performance. I didn't perform. Yeah, it's fine. So I'm just going to go through some examples kind of on my mind that maybe weren't even in August, but just want to talk about them to kind of describe the struggle of the environment right now, I guess. So, looking at NEGG, had this day when it went from 1740 to 2440. It's a really big green day. When it broke out, it was able to really explode, and I made a lot of money on this day. I think this was like a $70,000 trade right here, or close to it. So when I see NEGG popping up again in this area, I'm kind of thinking, okay, it's consolidated a bit, and if it breaks out of this consolidation, I thought that it would retest this 24 resistance. So it would pop up, it would find a nice uptrend and just explode, retest the 24 resistance. So I went for it on a couple occasions because sometimes it'll form kind of a third day surge type of setup. Sometimes they'll just randomly pop and spike very hard, and if you scalp them, then you just feel silly. So I remember on this day, for example, I traded in the morning kind of on this trend, break to the upside. I took some shares, came down on me. I wasn't quick enough to cut it, and I took a loss there. And then in the afternoon, I was sizing in this area and this area as it broke out and continued this move into the afternoon. And then I ended up letting that come down on me. And I was up $10,000, came down, I think, for like a $500 loss. There's plays like this where it's like, okay, it pops up, consolidates, and then on this day, it's able to pop up and retest the range. So here I am thinking, okay, this could be like a nice third day kind of surge where it'll consolidate a bit, but then it'll break out again of kind of this overall trend. It'll start to curl and then have an afternoon breakout and really make that explosive continuation that I'm anticipating. But then I'm sizing into this area and it, just or even this area, just no momentum comes in. It's so just weird price action lately to where you can't even really sell it. Like, it's just, it'll be sitting here and then all of a sudden the bids will just kind of disappear. It's like a lot of weird algorithm type trading, just weird stuff, not enough liquidity. So when things go bad, you're kind of just like, I'm kind of stuck. And not just that, when things are chopping around, and there's a lot of players that are making these weird chops where they'll come down, they'll come back up, and then they'll go. It's like, well, things are so choppy, I'm just going to try to let it chop a bit. Hopefully it'll recover and then go. And it seems like the plays that I'm letting chop around on me, none of them are recovering. It's like every time I'm in the play, they're not recovering, and I just get a way bigger loss than I wanted to take. Because in this environment, you just don't know what's going to recover. You don't know what's just like a false breakdown recovery. They're just chopping in such random ways. Very little insight into kind of what trends are going to work. And not just that, when you think something is a trend, they're shifting very quickly. So you'll try to play this new flow or new trend, and then it would just change into something completely different. Or I can't even explain it. It's just you either kind of feel it or you don't. It's very very strange. Just such a challenging environment to trade in for sure. And then on the fourth day, it made this like false breakdown, and then these candles have such a wide range. I mean, 25 cents a share up and down. It's kind of a gross spread to play, very illiquid. And then in just like in 1 minute, it just explodes up, and you miss it, or the play is gone at that point. It's just very, it's just, the plays are exploding up so fast, and so illiquid, and the ranges going into them don't even look that good, and so choppy, and they're taking such a long time. Now I did nail this trade, so just as it consolidated nicely, I was able to take some shares thinking it would retest and then break out. It did, and I was actually able to make 35,000 on that, so that was a very good trade. Then I continued to struggle quite a bit. So I think, what would happen, I would see something like this. It's like, okay, it's on its third day, it had a pullback. I'm thinking it will bounce and retest the 2060 area. And if it can hold that, it could potentially even break out over it and then get to that 24 area that I'm looking for on the multi-month or a multi-week. So, I would take shares in here or this area, just whatever, something in here, and then it would just quickly just come down, say, okay, I can hold it because it's a very choppy market. Things are taking a very long time to get to where they want to go. But you can see very quickly how uncomfortable it gets because the volume comes in. It's like, okay, this is working. This is good. But then it all disappears. It just goes away, and look at these candles, how illiquid. The ranges just get broken wide open. The level 2, the bid and the ask, such a large gap. There's no size. Everything just disappears and gets so weak and hard to eat, hard to predict, hard to be comfortable, and it's hard to know what to do in these situations. So you just got a situation where I was again just probably up close to 10,000, and then it just gets so slow I can't get out anywhere. It's not bouncing, and I end up getting out for break even. And because the candles stay so illiquid and so choppy, I couldn't justify an entry to re-enter it. And then once it finally did get good, I'm taking very, very expensive entries, higher than I really wanted to, because that's kind of just when the structure and the volume kind of returns. So then I'm taking entry. I'm anticipating it'll hold and then continue to fulfill the $24 area that I'm looking for. But then again, it gets so weak and things disappear on me, and now I have a situation where I literally just can't do much. It's like I want to try to hold for my plan because things are so choppy and slow. Yes, some of them are just taking a long time. They're holding and then they do work, but some of them just do this, where they just come right back down on you, and then you have a situation where you can't really wait to hold it. You can't really hold it and try to get a better exit, right? Because if it comes down and then tanks, well, that's a massive loss, and I can't risk that. So then I just have to cut for basically break even or a small loss on a play I was up close to 10,000 on, where normally it would be kind of bad to sell it here because in the past they just ran so much harder, and you gotta really just decide, okay, I'm gonna scalp it, and you gotta really just sell it immediately, it seems like, after these pops. And it's hard because some plays are like this, other plays are not. Other plays are patience plays. And I feel like instead of the market giving a clear direction as far as, yes, patience plays are working, you can hold for some longer trends. Yeah, that's kind of the trend right now. Instead of it being a clear trend. It's more just one day it's this way, the next day it's that way, back and forth. It'll be this way for a couple days and then completely shift for 3 or 4 days and shift again. It's like it's changing, and yeah, it's just very weird. It's inconsistent. The market's very inconsistent right now. It's not really giving any strong insights into how you should play this stuff based on kind of the overall market, because everything's just so random right now. As far as if you should scalp it very fast or try to hold for some bigger picture moves to really fulfill themselves, it's just not giving you a lot of insight. And then there was this day. It just does weird stuff to your mentality, you know? It's like, okay, it held this dip. I started taking shares because I'm aware that essentially what this is, it's a bottom of range hold. So it's consolidating, it tries to test, it fails in here, it comes back down, it's able to hold the test of the bottom of the range. So I'm scooping shares because I know it's going to curl and retest the top of the range. And again, I'm thinking if it finally breaks out of this, it'll fulfill the move to 24. That just made a lot of sense to me that this would pop up. It'll start retesting either this 2150 at the very least, or this 23 area, 24 area. It'll retest it because it's very nice development and consolidation. It's kind of proven itself that it's holding this range, it's making higher lows, it's flowing. Surely this flow will continue and retest the former resistance. You know, that it's just very common. It's common to see that type of thing. And I mean, it gave so many good, indicators that, yeah, this is a great play to go for, and you should have some patience and really let the big picture play out. Look at the scale from this day one of kind of this consolidation overall. The scale of that was 17 to 21. That's $4 a share. So if it fulfills that breakout scale, I'm thinking, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. This 19 area could absolutely fulfill kind of that scale and go to 23. And I took massive size because I just really loved the setup, really loved it. So I was just scooping shares in here, held up a bit, scooped some more shares in here. I think I had something like 15,000 shares at 1935 average, something like that. And it looked so good. It was looking amazing. I was so happy with the way it was moving, developing. You have these candles coming in, this nice volume, which is not even that much volume, which is a really good indicator to me, because that just means, okay, yeah, this first little perk is still low volume. That's what you want to see. That's really what you want to see. Because then as it comes down and consolidates, as it holds structure, whatever that structure looks like, or the time frame, it's kind of whatever, but you just got to hold on, because it could dip a bit, it could go lower, but then it could recover into the range again, okay, and then come up again. But the point is, that lower volume move is good, because then if it holds up and continues, then more volume can come in. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you see a ton of volume come in an area and it doesn't really move that much, that's kind of a bad sign, because that means there's a ton of resistance there, and a lot of liquidation is happening, and the price is not really moving as high as you maybe would think it should move with that amount of liquidation. So it made a lot of sense that this is just a nice kind of dollar a share perk. with this lower volume. It'll hold up, and then more volume will come in as it ramps and goes to that 23 area that I felt made a lot of sense. But then things disappeared, liquidity disappeared, the bid and the ask got really gappy, and there was just no size there, and I'm just sitting there. I can't really do anything. I mean, I can't really get out at any reasonable point after this happens. And it's like, well, the market is super weird and slow and choppy. I'm just going to wait, see if it can just hold my entry zone, and then maybe it'll slowly develop and pop back up. Okay, and then get some type of explosive, like, late day breakout. Okay, then I'm thinking it'll do something like that. And then it just doesn't. It just doesn't. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then I'm stuck, basically. And then I'm thinking, well, again, like, I'm seeing things basically come down all the way to former support, and they're recovering very fast and in very kind of weird ways. Maybe it'll do something weird like that. And when you're working with such an inconsistent, random market, you just don't know how to play these things proper, and you're trying to stick to your plans. But, it just didn't work out for me, and it just continued to get weak, and at this point I had to cut. Because anything can happen. This could slam down real quick into a massive panic and into a halt. So many bad things could have started to happen here that I had to get out to protect myself, and it did go to 1865, but yeah, it was a massive loss. I think I lost like $5,000 on that. So on a play that, once again, I was up $15,000 on this at one point, but my plan was to get that 23 area for the big picture trend, and it just didn't work out. What can I say? It just didn't work out. And because the market's so choppy and random and challenging, turned into a $5,000 loss. So, and I really wouldn't even say that I can't even be too hard on myself, really, because this is just how I choose to trade. I hold to my plan, or things go wrong, and I'm okay with it. I don't take partials. I don't like to trade like that. It's just not really my preference. So yeah, sometimes things come down like this, and it sucks, and maybe I could, maybe in the future I'll start getting out when there is literally no hold and no bounce, and I'll just accept it faster and maybe just get out in this area, so at least I can have a small win. But yeah, when something like this works and I do get that move to 23, well, that's a $60,000 win, right? So these things will hit for me. They will hit eventually for me. But during these kind of slower periods in the market, it just gets incredibly frustrating. But you just got to hang in there, because things do pick up again, and they will pick up again. You could even see it's just a nice multi-day trend too. Breaks out of the multi-day trend, and it just can't fulfill scale. It can't. These things are just frustrating. So yeah, it's just is what it is, I guess. There's things like ATIF, which is a 9 mil float, just had a recent split. Had a really explosive day one from 3 to 560. It's a 9 mil float. I'm thinking, okay, here's a day two, kind of has some nice volatility, and then on day three, it's just hanging right at that kind of resistance. I'm thinking, wow, this looks great. You know, I'll be able to scoop shares, perfect consolidation pattern. I'll be able to buy in heavy. It'll give me some nice continuation. Maybe pop from this 370 area to, at the very least, 420 area to kind of continue the trend in the run. Maybe it could even go higher. But they're just moving in strange ways. A 9 mil float just gets so slow, and if anything, it's kind of turned into a swing trade pattern on a 9 mil float. I mean, you don't see that very often. It's a very low float that was just explosively hot. Yet now it's moving like a... Now it's not even moving like a low float. It's just moving... I can't... Turning into a swing trade of all things on a 9 mil float that was just explosive with news. I mean, I'll watch it on Tuesday to see if... Because this is a key resistance area. So it's testing the key resistance, testing the key resistance. If it keeps testing the key resistance, then yeah, I can hold a range and then curl and continue and maybe retest the 550s and then maybe break out over it. Maybe it'll do that. So, I mean, I'll keep watching it for that. But because I'm not used to these things becoming so slow and taking such a long time, what's happening is I'm trying to trade it to get in before it explodes. And because it's not no float and it can instantly explode out of the blue, and so I'm trying to time the entry, trying to get in, and nothing's happening after I enter. You know, or I'm taking entry and then it's exploding, like, okay, this is gonna work, and then nothing happens. It gets slow, it just comes down on me, no liquidity, nothing I can do, and then it's like, okay, I guess I have to get out, and I'm just getting chopped up on this stuff. I'm taking big losses because I'm just constantly taking sizing and having to get out for like these small losses. But obviously, when nothing is really doing what you want or the way you anticipate it to flow and move, when that's not happening, you're taking a lot more paper cuts than you normally would, and not just that, but you're not really finding any of those big trades to kind of like to push yourself green, to push yourself into the profits. You gotta nail that really big trade, and I'm just not finding the big trades. Because they're just flowing in really weird, strange ways. And by weird and strange, I just mean really slow. Really slow. You know, we haven't felt a market this kind of slow and choppy, like I said, in like 2 years. Yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, the ranges are still amazing, and the plays are still amazing, and the opportunities amazing. But the flows are just, like I said, you're trying to shoot a ball a different way or something. It's like your mind has not felt flows like this in a long time. So now my brain is just catching up with this new flow. It's like, okay, I haven't felt this flow since like 2019. It's a very slow and annoying flow to have to play. I don't like it. But if it's the new trend and it's going to be around for a while, then I need to get my mind, you know, the muscle memory in my brain needs to start adjusting to these new flows. And yeah. So IRNT was very hot on this day, went from 12 to 15. That's very nice. Again, on kind of a hot market. Day 2, okay, pulls back but holds gains, consolidates. Day 3, gap up. It's just an easy watch. And really, it should be a great play because normally these things would hold up and then start to work right away and start to continue right away. Well, it doesn't. it doesn't. And if you're holding it for the continuation because it held such nice gains, well, look at this. You know, you would think like, okay, maybe it's gonna be like, okay, it's pulling back again, but it'll hold and then it'll just start uptrending, right? And go back up. It's like, no. It's gonna make this gross breakdown, screw over anybody that was dip buying it. Then it's gonna have this weird recovery where it goes from 1230 to 1430 with like barely any structure that's good, like really no structure. This is kind of like a bounce play on just no structure. It's just like, okay, you don't know if it's gonna go higher or lower, or you don't know if it's gonna recover or go lower, and then it just very illiquid, just out of the blue, just big pop. It's like, okay, now you have no comfort to get in. It's still a liquid to the point where how do you even play this? It's almost, the move is happening, the opportunity is there, but there's no play. Like I can't explain it. It's just because things look like this all the time and then are failing. But then it's so random as far as which ones work good like this, and then you'll get in something and you'll look like an idiot because it'll fail and then it'll just look like a dumb chase. But then sometimes like this, they just work. There's no consistency right now. So instead of having a clean third day search setup, these things are just chopping, being illiquid to the point where you can't even really get back in with comfort, and then, you know, then it just starts ripping. And I mean, this was a nice setup to where it's like, yeah, that's a good ace on a triangle. You could take it, but this one worked really good. But you know how many I see that look good like that and don't do anything or get slow and slam back down? A ton. It's like there's no consistency to know what type of flow or setup you should focus on. It's like on this day here, it looked very similar. It was kind of a gap up in the morning. It was kind of perking up. And this one slammed in the morning. And this one went up. Like, so on this day, I was saying, okay, maybe it'll perk a little. But overall, I kind of think, okay, it's going to like consolidate, maybe dip, kind of slam a bit. And then kind of hold gains and curl. And then I can get involved. Because that's kind of what it did on this day. It slammed, consolidated a bit, and then people could get involved for a nice move. I thought it would do the same here. But it totally shifted its trend and just broke out. I mean, I guess there was hints to say, like, yeah, you should just get in fast and go for it, because at this point, it is a false breakdown recovery of the range. It's held for multiple days. Like, I get it, but at the same time, it's just so much time is passing between the kind of when it's hot and then when it works again. So much time is passing. It's so choppy. It's very, very easy to forget about. It's easy to stop being comfortable with it. I mean, look at how sick this is, too. Like, it goes from 1420 to 1850, and it goes all the way back down to 1420. That's so gross. It's so gross. Yeah. And then if you see it again, it's like, okay, it's kind of breaking out of this. I can get involved in this area and try to go for some continuation. Maybe it'll retest kind of the 16 or 17 area. And it can't do that. It gets slow, and then it just comes down. And then at this point, how do you stay comfortable in something this illiquid? The range is crazy. It's like you gotta just kind of cut for a paper cut, which in this play is pretty big loss. And if you didn't get stopped out here, I mean, you're certainly gonna get stopped out here. You can't just let things come down $1 sure on you. You know, you just can't. But then it holds here and starts to curl again. The thing that's so frustrating to me is in the past, or during a hot market, so to speak, these things are amazing entries, and I did enter this. I was sizing in here. I had 10,000 shares. I had 10,000 shares at a 15-15 average. 10,000 shares. I knew that this thing absolutely can continue, can spike, find a trend, and respike to new highs. Because that's the type of play and the volatility that this is capable of. And I've seen it happen all the time. It's very common. And during a hot market, guess what? It works right here. It does this move right here. It does it here. It'll uptrend a bit and then start ramping. And then test. It'll break out. It'll go to 25 right here. And if that move happens right here during normal trading hours when I'm in 10,000 shares, well, in that case, I make $90,000. If I make $90,000 on this trade, that one trade alone will pretty much make my entire month. But what ends up happening? Well, doesn't hold gains at all, gets a liquid. The bid in the ask gets wide. I'm basically just, oh, okay, I'm great. I'm screwed again. And it comes down, and I just can't do anything. I can't do anything. I just have to cut here to protect myself, and I end up taking a $2,500 loss on a play that during, different conditions makes me $90,000. So you have a situation. I understand it's developing again. I get it. It looks great. But the market's about to close. It's like, what? The market's about to close. So I'm sitting here like, and then you start to overthink this stuff. So I did get back involved, in this 1550 area because it looks great. It starts to curl. I'm thinking, okay, I really hope it can start to curl before the market closes here. It's like 245. Please explode, test highs for me, please. It's looking so good here. Doesn't do it. It comes down. It tests my entry. I don't sell it. It pops up again. It gets slow. I cut it. Because I just saw, what it just did. It did the same thing. It flowed in here. It looked really good, but it got slow. Started to come down, and I lost all my gains, and I actually took a loss. So this time, I just took 5,000 shares here because it's just riskier. After something looks great and then dies like this, it's like, okay, this is sketchy. So I can't take 10,000. So I take 5,000. I lock a $5,000 win here. But I was still very frustrated because the play is just taking such a long time. I had to spend so much mental energy on this. On a play that would normally just work here or normally work here. And I would bank on it. But now I'm wasting a lot of time. I'm getting frustrated. It's making me anxious because it's so illiquid and choppy. And it'll look great. It'll look liquid. It'll look good to go. You'll get in, and then it just gets illiquid and choppy. It's really weird when things look one way and then shift into something entirely different very soon after. It's like the shifting of momentum, the shifting of trends, the shifting of what's proper or not, as far as if you should scalp it or you should hold it, and these things are shifting very fast. And that's a type of market we haven't felt in a while. So it's just incredibly hard. It's incredibly hard. So then when after hours hits, I see that it's still holding the top of the range, and then it hits me. Oh, This is gonna do one of those stupid things where it's gonna run after hours. Great. Just pissed me off, really. I'm so tired of these structures developing and taking so long to develop to the point where they're occurring in after hours. It's obnoxious. It's so annoying. So annoying because if you hold this into after hours, if it doesn't trade after hours, because you don't know if something's going to be you don't know if something's going to trade after hours or not until you literally just look at the level 2 and after hours and see if there's support showing up and trades going through. Sometimes the market will close and there will be no support. It'll just be like, you know, the bid in the ass will be like 14 by 18. Like basically you can't get out. So at that point, if any bad news hits, if anything bad happens, you're screwed. So that's why I can't hold my position in the after hours. I just can't justify it. But in after hours, I did see, okay, there is support. It is, prints are going through. It is trading reasonably. And it's like, okay, the trend is so stupid right now. But it's definitely going to run after hours because that's just what they're doing. They're not working in normal trading hours. They're either working in after hours or they're gapping up in pre-market on no liquidity, so you can't execute the play. Even if you do execute it, you can't take size. So here I am. I ended up getting in a bit here and getting in a bit here. So I had 1707. 1,000 shares at 1707. Started to work for me. It was looking good. I wanted 27. I ended up getting spooked out here because it's like, okay, it's starting to feel kind of exhausted. It starts to come down on me. I kind of just hit my breaking point. I sold it at 24. So I did lock up $7,000 on that. But then it recovered right away, and I almost re-entered because that candle was so strong. It held for a minute. I almost re-entered this as like a 3-minute flag setup, so I could re-enter here for a continuation, see if it could start to go parabolic. It did. It went parabolic, and it reached 40. So I'm not really frustrated with where I sold it. That's fine. That's a great chunk of this move. You're not always going to catch the parabolic, but that's still an amazing play. The thing I'm frustrated with is I knew it was going to do that. I worked very hard to find it. I had great 10,000 share entry here, a 5,000 entry here. It could have worked at either spot, and in different market conditions it would have. But this dang slow, choppy market is moving in some of the most annoying flows that I've ever felt in like 2 years, maybe 3 years. Just the most annoying flows. You can't take this stuff with size. You can, but it's a lot riskier. I just want the straightforward flows to come back. That's all I want. Once those straightforward flows come back, I just lock up 90,000. Like, in the short term, it's really frustrating, and it's really easy for people, you know, like myself, like being critical of myself, saying, you're dumb. Why didn't you just scalp it? You were in 5,000 shares, whatever. Not on this one, because I did sell it this time, but something like this. It's like, okay, you were in 10,000 shares, it tested 16. You could have sold it, locked up, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 once it showed weakness. Like, why didn't you do that? You're dumb. But I know what they're capable of, and I know that sometimes they do work. So if you scalp it for 4, 5, 6, 7,000, and then it ends up exploding, and you don't get a re-entry, and it goes this high, well, then what? Then you share with everybody, oh, I locked up $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, and I could have made $350,000. And then everybody's like, oh, well, you're so bad for scalping it. Why would you scalp it there? It looked great. It was flowing. What are you doing? Why did you sell it? And then in this case, you don't sell it. You end up taking a $2,500 loss. Everybody says, oh, you're greedy. You're greedy. You're greedy. And that's just why I don't know. Just over it. I'm just extremely frustrated. And yeah, I just took a break from just this last week. I mean, I didn't even post on Twitter. It's so over it and frustrated, and I don't want to deal with it, because there's always going to be people trying to tell you how to trade or give you this advice that you don't need. It's like, no offense, I built my career. I understand how to trade. It's just, you go through periods of time where shit's annoying. That's just what trading is. It's not always going to flow how you're used to or how you want or how you prefer. It's just a very slow market right now. This is a slow market when a play has an explosive move, can't hold any gains, then chops its way back up, but doesn't continue during the normal market. Instead, whereas after hours, where you can't even take size, so annoying. And then IPHA, and this is an example of how things are so unpredictable. I saw it. I knew that it just went from 4 to 12. It came all the way back down because this is the type of market that we're in. And I see, though, the next day it is able to kind of gap up and kind of hold these higher lows, and then it's flowing. It's making a nice range. I start to scoop shares. I end up taking 15,000 shares at an average of 490. So I took some in here, and then I took an ad on kind of this curl. So I had 15,000 at 490. So I'm just looking at, like, okay, it has some consolidation from the day before. It's a nice horizontal. It's just a major area where if it starts to consolidate there again and break out, well, then it turns into a confirmation that it's going to bounce. It's coming from 12. So if it bounces, it could absolutely find $7 area as a bounce. That's what I was thinking. The problem is, when it starts to test and it comes down hard and I basically lose all my profits, or at the time I was in from 480 with 10,000 shares, it comes down, came all the way back down to 483. And at one point, it was at 548. So I went from being up 7,000 to break even. I felt like an idiot. But I knew, okay, this is, like I said, it's choppy. I gotta hold on. Like I was saying just before, this is why on plays like NEGG, this is why I would hold through that ugly pullback back to my entry and I would look like an idiot. Well, this time, look, it came back. It pops back up with low volume and recovers the range. I take an ad here because I really liked this kind of consolidation, and I really thought, okay, great, I can add here, it'll explode up, it'll retest this horizontal, and I'll get the big picture move, and it'll, not that fast, but it'll just start curling, or at least hold and then curl, like things normally do in a hot market. And this is why this market's hard, because it is a hot market. Don't get it twisted. It's very hot. The plays are great. The ranges are great. It's a hot market. It's an amazing market. But they're flowing in slow ways that I wouldn't consider hot. So it's like, it's a hot market, but the flows suck. Super weird. So anyways, it slams back down, and then I'm like, what do I do? Because at this point, that ad wasn't that great. It was like a 525 ad. So now I'm sitting here with like 15,000 shares at 490 average. It comes down, I'm just thinking, what the hell? Like, this is gonna come down, it's gonna get weak, it's gonna slam. Like, what the hell? This market sucks. I'm so annoyed. But it pops back up and recovers. And I'm like, okay, finally, is my hold finally going to work? Am I going to get rewarded for actually holding on? Finally. Comes up, comes down again, gets weak. It's at 511. I'm like, oh, this is sketchy, but I'm just holding. Finds this range. It breaks out of the range. Pops up over the high, where it should almost always, during normal kind of flows, this always explodes into either a halt or an explosive move to test 6 consolidation and then a surge into halt. Always. Or like most of the time. But it doesn't. It gets sucked back down and feels so weak and awful. I'm like, this is just another failed move, isn't it? It's gonna come up, it's gonna act like it's gonna be great, it's gonna come down, get sucked back down, and then it's gonna drop off. Liquidity is gonna go away, it's gonna get choppy, it's gonna get weak, and it's gonna come all the way back down to the 430s by the end of the day. That's what I was thinking, because I saw like 10 other plays do the exact same thing. And so now you can see why this market is so hard to trade, because there's no consistency. Everything is flowing in weird ways. These things look like they're about to die, and a ton of them do. So you get a situation where I get punished on things like NEGG, plenty of other ones. VRPX, I think, or NRXP, one of those, just get punished by not locking in gains. And then when they show me weakness, like I said, I'm just holding on because some of them are holding and making these great moves, but a ton of them aren't, and just coming down fast with no liquidity. And if you wait to that point, you can't get out. You're just screwed. And then you end up breaking even or taking like a $1,000 or $2,000 loss, and you feel like a moron. But this is one of those situations, if I would have just held on and held for my plan, it would have worked. So this is just my own mental error, because I let the market condition get to my head, where I know eventually one of these flows is going to work, because that's just how trading works. These things will work. But when enough of them don't work and fell on you, and that frustration overcomes you, and you stop trading logically, well, then it got weak and I gave up. And I cut it. I cut it all at 520. So I had a 490 average with 15,000 shares. I cut it at 520. So I made about $4,500. My profit target was 750. Got to 750. Actually, it got to 890. But my profit target was 750. I would have locked it up here. Yeah, would have been like a $60,000 trade from Friday. That would have been $60,000. But because the market condition is screwing with my head so much, I misplayed it. Yep. And that's why I don't even want to talk about trading really for a little while. Like, I don't even want to discuss it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to post about it. I'm just over it. It's like I'm taking these things. If they work great, I look dumb, and then if they don't work great, it turns into, oh, you were so greedy. It's like, no. Sometimes the plays work, and just people always critique and want to tell you what you did wrong based on hindsight, and I, I'm just annoyed with seeing this stuff. I'm just burnt out on posting about it or talking about it. So going forward, I mean, good or bad, I mean, I'll just probably just stay silent for a bit while I just kind of get into a better headspace, and kind of just, yeah, I mean, I'm just need to get into a more positive headspace. I mean, it's fine. I've been consolidating for a while. It's just annoying, but I know I'll start hitting these flows, and yeah, I mean, it's only a matter of time. I mean, just from like 2 recent plays. IPHA, being a $60,000 play that I just mentally screwed up, and IRNT, $90,000 play, which by the way peaked at $350,000 of upside. This entry peaked at $350,000 of upside. If it works right here and flows the way I want it to, now would I have locked up $350,000? No, I would have locked up $90,000, and that's fine. That's still a $90,000 win. That will happen. It's only a matter of time before the flows shift and change, and I hit those flows, right? So this is a good example of luck in trading. It takes luck to enter it and have the flow be your preference. And when that flow is not your preference, well, you got unlucky, right? But it does take skill to know that a play like IRNT can do crazy things and can run to something like 40, right? It takes skill to know and have the insight that, yeah, a play really does have that much upside. But there's a lot of luck to hit it and execute it the way you imagine it, as far as the perfect kind of what you would imagine to be a perfect execution and perfect flow. It takes a lot of luck for those things to come together. So yeah, going forward, hopefully some of the flows get faster, because I prefer faster flows. It's easier to see a play and get in the short term, be aware of it, execute it properly, get in with size. And when those flows are occurring in fast ways, everything runs smoother. Everything. So I'm really hoping things shift. If they don't, well, obviously I'll just have to keep adjusting and keep trying my best to kind of play these really slow structures and slow continuations and these after hours and pre-market gaps, that seem to be more and more of a trend. So you have a really great trade idea, and you don't even have a chance to execute that trade idea because they're just gapping overnight. And that's incredibly frustrating. You can camp a play for weeks, and then it can just do an overnight gap with no liquidity, and you literally it basically skipped your trade idea. Just skipped it. Like it skipped any logical flow of how you would think it would develop, and it just kind of just gapped up and skipped you. It's like, oh, well, a play I just camped for a week or two literally just went up on no volume just after hours randomly. It's like, okay, cool. So all that mental energy that you spent for a week or two camping this, it was for nothing, because the flow is so frustrating right now. So that's kind of, I mean, it's just the truth. It's a hot market, but it's a frustrating market to trade. Very challenging. You got to be a very, very high level trader to execute this stuff. And I mean, I think high level traders that act like this is an easy market to trade, they're forgetting what it's like to not be so skilled. It's incredibly frustrating market right now. Hot market, yeah, challenging to the max. Some of the most challenging market conditions are happening right now. This is really what 2019 felt like. That was a challenging year. That was one of the slower years I believe. I mean, I haven't been in the game that long, but from what I hear, from what I saw, from what I felt, yeah, 2019 was definitely a challenging year. And these flows are kind of reminding me of 2019 a bit. So, all right. Well, yeah, that's pretty much the August recap. I know I talked a lot about this month that just started, but I mean, August had the same flow, so it's pretty much talking about the same thing. But overall, I mean, it's fine. Like, I get to wake up and trade for a living. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good deal. Like, yeah, break even for almost a month now sucks, but I'm just lucky to be at the point where I can trade and not lose a ton of money when I'm going through hard times. I can just sustain. And when I do start to hit those good flows again or adjust properly, and when things come together for me, it'll be fine. Because, I mean, just that one trade alone, $90,000. I know that trade. If I nail IPHA for $60,000, that's $150,000, and all of a sudden I'm on a huge upswing, right? So a lot can change in just one day. This was literally just one day of 150,000 in potential plays. If I nail one of those days and things connect and I do hit with that luck, that's a huge upswing. You see what I mean? So you just string it together a couple really good days, and I'll be over 2 million before I know it. But I can't get frustrated, because frustration is what leads to not nailing the plays. That's what leads to me making mental errors on an IPHA, abandoning a plan that finally would have worked. The flow finally would have worked, would have followed my plan. It never would have stopped me out, and I would have nailed it. But I let myself get burned out mentally to the point where I was not capable of executing a play that finally worked, because I dealt with so many that did not work before it. And that's me getting burnt out. That's me not staying logical and not playing the long-term statistics. That's just me trading on hindsight, abandoning plan, getting emotional. So it's really easy to get mentally burnt out in this market condition. And, nobody can escape that risk of getting burnt out. I mean, it happens to everybody. So we just got to keep at it and keep trying our best. So, all right. August recap done. Hopefully September will be a bit better. Starting the month bad, but like I said, a lot can change in just a couple trades. So I am still optimistic I can get it together, and September can be a much different story, hopefully. All right, see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.